So, let's talk about a very different way to learn English. Today, we are diving deep into a teaching method that is so chaotic, so full of profanity, it feels like it breaks every rule in the book. The big question is, can cussing someone out actually help them learn?
Okay, let's just jump right in. And honestly, there is no better way to get a feel for this than to hear it from them directly. This is literally how they open their show. It immediately sets the tone, right? It's aggressive, it's totally unprofessional, it is completely unhinged. All right, so to really get what's going on here, you first have to meet the two professors who are running this whole operation. Their on air personalities are absolutely key to this entire strange method. And here they are. You've got these two very distinct styles. On one hand, there's Professor falling off the chair. He's this totally burnt out, slurring academic who sounds like he's just done with everything. And then you have Professor Pay Up, You Cheap Bastard, who is just this manic, shouting hype man obsessed with donations. It's this wild combination that creates this constant, relentless, chaotic energy.
So, what's the problem they're actually trying to solve with all this madness? Well, they have a diagnosis. They believe most English learners get stuck sounding robotic, or as they so beautifully put it, like a glitching microwave. So, their whole method isn't really about grammar. It's about shattering that hesitation and that fear.
And that leads us straight to their core philosophy. See, they argue that the quickest way to sound fluent isn't about getting every verb tense right. No, it's about having aggressive, unapologetic self-belief. It's all about putting confidence first, and then maybe worrying about the details later. Which, brings up a huge question for anyone trying to learn anything, but especially a language. How do you actually get someone to stop being terrified of making mistakes? Their answer, as you can probably guess, is not something you're going to find in any traditional textbook.
And here is their answer. They completely flip the script. As you can see, they teach learners to just throw away those polite, stiff, robotic phrases. Instead, you replace them with these bold, confident, and profane statements. The whole goal is to short-circuit that fear of sounding wrong. I mean, just look at this example. They give you phrases that are not only super memorable, but they capture a real, genuine feeling that we've all had. It's a really practical, if a little crude, way to arm learners with language they can actually use, not just stuff for a classroom. Okay, so this whole confidence first thing naturally flows right into how they teach vocabulary. They don't give you long lists of words to memorize. Nah. Instead, they focus on these high-impact, super versatile phrases you can start using immediately. And a perfect example is their lesson on the phrase, holy shit. They present this thing like it's a linguistic Swiss Army knife, a universal tool you can whip out for pretty much any frustrating situation you can think of. It's simple, it's effective, and you don't need to worry about complex grammar at all. But just when you think you've got the one phrase to rule them all, they throw in a hilarious and very specific exception. They identify one situation where holy shit just isn't gonna cut it, which leads to a much, much stronger piece of advice. And there you have it. That right there is their entire teaching style in one sentence. It's aggressive, it's impossible to forget, and it's weirdly practical. By using these super modern relatable metaphors, like blocking ads, they make the lesson stick in your head in a way a textbook never, ever could. Okay, this idea of practical, memorable lessons brings us to what might be the perfect story to explain their whole philosophy on learning, confidence, and failure. It's basically a parable about public humiliation. So they set the scene, and it's a scenario that is basically the stuff of nightmares for anyone learning a language. You're in a high-stakes, real-world situation where you have to perform under pressure. I mean, we can all relate to that anxiety, right? And then it happens. The catastrophic, but let's be honest, hilarious mistake. The student, totally stressed out, says something completely absurd. This isn't just a tiny grammar slip-up. This is a full-on, memorable disaster. So what's the big moral they pull out of this train wreck? It's simple. Even if you say something colossally dumb, something just mortifying, the world doesn't end. You survive. And that's really the core of their teaching. They're trying to desensitize you to the fear of failure by showing you the absolute worst-case scenario and then showing you that you'll be fine. But of course, being them, they can't just leave it on a serious, heartfelt moral. They immediately undercut the whole thing with a final punchline. This constant snapback to chaos is their signature move. It makes sure the lesson lands with humor, not like a lecture.
So, after all this, you might be asking yourself, why? What is the point of all the yelling and the profanity? Well, believe it or not, buried under all that chaos, there's actually a surprisingly motivational goal. It's basically a trial by fire. The idea is if you can listen to them and handle their insane delivery, then having a normal conversation in English out in the real world is going to feel like a walk in the park by comparison. You're not just learning a language, you're surviving the lesson.
And it all builds to this. This is their final message, their version of a motivational speech. It is aggressive, it's packed with curse words, but at its heart, it's an incredibly uplifting pep talk. It's a very strange form of encouragement, but for some people, it might just be exactly what they need to hear.
I think the hosts themselves summarize it best. They basically admit that their method isn't about traditional teaching. They care way more about engagement and getting a laugh than they do about grammar drills. They operate on a simple principle. A learner who is entertained is a learner who's going to keep showing up. And that leaves us with a really interesting final thought. In a world that's filled with structured language apps and formal, quiet classrooms, is there a real place for this kind of unhinged engagement? It's unconventional, for sure. It's profane. But it forces us to ask a fascinating question. What if, for some people, chaos is actually a better teacher than structure?